How are you? Welcome to Critical Moves of Telesur. What is the OAS trying to do with their pronunciation with the pronunciation against Dominica in the electoral process? Is this a way of interfering with countries do not agree with the United States? All of the everything has been useless when they've been said that they promote coup d'états. This is what we're going to be talking about today. Let's begin. Well, since the coup d'état is so recent still, the alliance for these countries, ALBA, are now saying what the OAS is doing in respect to the upcoming elections of Dominica. Let's listen to the authorities of this nation. December 2014, we have seen the process in which has had successful results for the government. The OAS has been there, and bearing in mind all of the information we have given them, and they should call on the people who carry out this violence to cease. And we call on the OAS and the other countries to stop any type of criticism that may affect the people of Dominica. Is going to decide on December 6th who is going to rule for the next 5 years. These elections will be free, fair, transparent, regardless of their hate and their lies and their attempts to create destruction and their attempts to bring foreign interference. So we say, hands off, Dominica. Let's practice peace and public order. Let's respect the good name of Dominica. Let's do a background on Twitter to see other statements and other reactions that give us the idea on how the process ALBA-TCP against OAS is going on. Let's see what Luis Almagro said. The people of Dominica deserve democratic, fair, inclusive, and transparent elections. Democracy is the best antidote against violence. An OAS observation mission would be essential to provide assurance and suggest improvements to the system.
The people of Dominica deserve democratic, fair, inclusive, and transparent elections. Democracy is the best antidote against violence. An OAS observation mission would be essential to provide assurance, and suggest improvements to the system.
So we have this, and we also have the Twitter of Jorge Arreaza. He's the foreign minister of Venezuela, who's speaking out about this position. He says ALBA-TCP calls on the international community the application of the same format used by the OAS in Bolivia in the upcoming elections in Dominica, whose only purpose seems to be oriented at unconstitutional and forced triumph of the Prime Minister Roosevelt's carrot. Bruno Rodriguez Parrilla, he's the Foreign Affairs Minister of Cuba, also speaks out. He says, we support the Prime Minister of the Man Community of Dominica, Roosevelt Scarrett, with the intention of interference of foreign governments on their government, our solidarity with the people of this brothered nation. And one more, we have the Misión Verdad website, who says, after Bolivia, Almagro now aims at Dominica, another country member of the ALBA-TCP, whose government has always supported the integration of Latin America and the Caribbean, and calls out on the coups in the region. But let's locate this main community of Dominica in the map. Dominica, Caribbean Nation for the Integration. Dominica is officially called Man Community of Dominica, Commonwealth of Dominica. It's part of the Minor Antilles. It's to the south of Guadalupe and to the north of Rousseau, of Martinica. Its capital is Rousseau, In 1978, Dominica obtained its independence from the UK. They have a parliamentary democracy within the Commonwealth of Nations. This is made up of 150 countries that historically have ties with Great Britain. Their economy is based on financial services, tourism, and agriculture. In June of this year, the European Union took off the blacklist of tax paradises. They are members of CELAC, OAS, CARICOM, Caribbean Association countries, ACP, and the Group of 77, the Movement of Non-Aligned Governments, Petrocaribe, and ALBA-TCP, to which it had added up to in 2008. So seeing ALBA as the leader against these new interference, I would like to see in depth what is this about. The Bolivarian Alliance for the Commerce of our People is a platform of integration for the countries of Latin America and Caribbean, with emphasis on solidarity, justice, complementarity, and join all of the skills of their members. The intention of this mechanism is to produce institutional transformations necessary to obtain the development that these countries need. They want to push forward the identity and independence of all of these countries. The creation of this is against a plan of annexation of ALCA, of the TLC. The founder countries were Venezuela and Cuba in 2006, Bolivia, Nicaragua, later Dominica in 2008, Antigua y Barbuda, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Among the main principle is to protect the identity of the region. They still want to make Petrocaribe. They also want a news media that will fight the misinformation, like Telesur. And they also have the other mechanism, CELAC, where they promoted Latin America as a zone of peace. Let's see digital websites. We have Prensa Latina that November 24th published Dominica rejects the OAS elections interference. The Prime Minister of Dominica, Roosevelt Skerrit, rejected the interference of the OAS in the general elections of December 6th. He criticized Luis Almagro's position to send an electoral mission to Dominica. He said that the government will elect the new authorities in a form fair and transparent. Let's continue with Telesur. This is November 27. Prime Minister of Dominica presents a program of government. He says that Mr. Skerrit ensures that the election is clear. Just days after Francine Barron said that these elections will have the same rules as they've had for the past 40 years. This is the way Barron answers the declarations of the Secretary General of the OAS, who called on to support his position. There has been accusations from both parties saying that they've been doing electoral fraud to have a better result to their side. What he's trying to do is to sign agreements. And we want a change of government without changing the date of the elections. This is what Roosevelt Skerrit said. Let me suggest that you read The OAS, That Ugly Thing, written by Elias Cañedo, published in Stanbright, with great clairvoyance. Simón Bolívar said that the United States was going to try to plague the U.S. with missiles. Then it wasn't only in the name of the of liberty, but then up until now, they use that in defense of other causes. The case is that the United States was able to get what his people needed. And then in this context, in 1948, then that the OAS had appeared as an instrument, as the U.S., to instrumentalize the domination of the U.S. on Latin America and the Caribbean. The OAS is just an extension of the Monroe Doctrine. And this is why it's so useless when they try to condemn the U.S. The story of the OAS, which I would not want to fight, has always been to support the rich people. It's important to highlight the United States with the support of several other countries try to revive the OAS. But the America and the Caribbean of today is different. Today's world is something else. It's true that new right-wing governments have done well. This one is still territory in dispute. Well, once again, we can see the uselessness of the OAS. This is Luis Almagro. Let's go to our first pause and critical moves, not before inviting you to participate in our Twitter account. This is our question today. Almagro said, I quote, an observation mission of the OAS to Dominica would be essential to offer security and improve their system. What are they planning when the coup in Bolivia is still so fresh? Okay, so participate. Give us your opinion. After the break, we'll be right back. What is the electoral process of the Commonwealth of Dominica? This is important to check. The political system that is in Dominica, it's a democratic parliament. The president is the leading of the parliament, while the prime minister, is the other one. It has one chamber of 20 members. 21 are elected directly. There are 9 senators elected by the president or by the rest of the legislative body. On the next December 6th, there will be parliamentary elections. The mandate, both of the Congress people and of the executive branch, will last 5 years. They are not obligatory. Luis Almagro, the director of the OAS, authorities of the government says that this has been invented by the opposition that are only trying to push forward the interference of foreign countries in the elections. So we're in conditions to begin our analysis. From Mexico, we have Dr. Margarita from the Autonomous University of Mexico. Welcome. And on the other hand, we have from Argentina, Jorge Luis Vertale. He's an editorialist. Welcome to both. Let's begin with the lady, Margarita. I was just reading a tweet that was written by Evo Morales, who is in Mexico. He says, the coup has not been against Evo, but against the country itself. They want to dismantle a multicultural country. Fascism does not accept the diversity of cultures and thought, but together we will know how to stand up. Why do I mention this tweet? It's because many analysts have said that there is many contact points between what happened in Bolivia with this coup d'etat and the plans that the OAS has in respect to Dominica, at the Commonwealth of Dominica, but with another vision. Do you agree? Yes, well, first of all, I thank you for the invitation, and I think that in fact, this is a very hard political moment for Latin America and the Caribbean, where there is a siege against the progressive forces of the continent. And in fact, I think there is an interference policy that the OAS is carrying forward through their president, Luis Almagro, on this small Caribbean island that doesn't have a big, a strong position. And the fact is that they don't need surveillance of these elections that are for Parliament. So I think that is totally unnecessary, the attitude of the OAS in these upcoming elections in Dominica. And I think that effectively it is part of a siege against the progressive forces of the continent that are trying to have to conquer some powers, and in other cases they won the elections, like Evo Morales. Please stand by with us, Dr. Margarita, so we can speak a little bit more with you later. Let's talk with you, Jorge Luis Vertale. What concerns the OAS so much in respect to Dominica? Is it to preserve democracy, or is there something else? Maybe you could explain what the Secretary General understands of democracy. Well, good afternoon, Ray, and all of the audience of Telesur. Well, you see, the topic of Dominica who is part of the ALBA, and of which Cuba, Nicaragua, Venezuela, Bolivia. Well, now with the coup, it doesn't. But well, it's the only organization in the region that the U.S. could not disarticulate, because the U.S. has disarticulated CELAC and other organizations. It's important to consider that the OAS said it was minister of the colonies of the U.S. There was a popular song by Carlos Puebla. How will I not? The song said, "How am I not going to laugh of the OAS if it's so ugly?" And there are other organisms that come from the OAS, like the International Defense College that was born in 1942, along with the OAS, and it is a military body, and it is a colonization body. So it's really not weird that they have this position in respect to Dominica, because it's what they did in other countries. They've legalized the coup that happened on October 20th. If this coup had been considered not to be so transparent, then we have that at the first OAS didn't say anything, and then he supported it. Let me open a parenthesis here to tell the audience that just recently, that it have been 35 days after the elections in Bolivia, now recognize that they don't have the definite report on the elections. However, they supported the new government of that pushed the coup. Well, of course, this government responds to the interest of the U.S. government. And the OAS, that is the Minister of Colonies, and they also have this military branch, that is the Inter-American College of Defense. And of course, you cannot expect anything different from these organisms. And the truth is that when you're confronting the imperialism, you have to foresee these types of military attacks. We have to see that the U.S. needs to take over natural resources, be this oil or any type of or lithium or any type of energy. And they also consider Latin America as their backyard. And now they're going back to the violent policies. Well, we have to be prepared, because this is just the beginning. Then we had the coup in Honduras against Zelaya. And now this coup against Bolivia is an expression of fascism. That are one of the faces of the imperialism. So it's nothing weird that they would want to interfere in Dominica, because they're part of the ALBA, and what they want is to destroy the ALBA. This is the truth. Margarita, the fact that just recently there was a coup against Bolivia, member of ALBA, and this recent statement of the General Secretary in regards to Dominica, that's also part of ALBA, leads us to believe that the coup is not against the country, individually speaking, but against the whole bloc mechanism of integration, as the ALBA is. Yes, I think you're right. I think that it's awful. And it's because they're organizations of regional integration that have a different proposal, and obviously are questioning the mechanisms of capitalism. So, of course, definitely, they're important nucleus of dispute of power with these integration systems. And It is an attack against the integration, the regional integration organisms, and that have been fighting so strong, and that are now finding alternatives to the capitalism. And if you analyze, Dominique is a small country that really shouldn't have this crisis. This is a small island that really doesn't represent the political force of Bolivia, but it's very important within this strategy to block, in a sense, the Bolivarian alliance. That, of course, CARICOM, that is the integration organism. I think that far more important. Well, now that you say the CARICOM, a group that has always voted in bloc in favor of Venezuela and its instances, but also Dominica says that this posture of Luis Almagro is in revenge after the votes that favor Cuba. Well, CARICOM shows solidarity with all of the members and against the policy that the U.S. has over Cuba. The president of OAS has an institutional representation that he really doesn't deserve. He's he works with vengeance, and it's not possible that an international organization goes and invades a country. Jorge Luis, just to close a little bit, I would like to ask you, who's behind all of this? Who's really behind all of this? Is there a country? Because everything points at Washington, D.C. Well, I said it ever since the beginning. The OAS is the Ministry of Colonies. And the U.S. is not doing a bad job. And because you see what they've done with Bolivia, with Correa in Ecuador, and in other countries. The thing is that let's see if this is feasible. But they're not going to be able to do it because there are people. The people are going to call out on their fascist governments. Now we have Frente Amplio in the second round. So it's really not that easy. And what is true is that behind OAS is the U.S. military and government forces. If we see that the United States also receives some of the refugees that are in their favor. Thank you, Jorge Luis. Let's go to Margarita. Margarita, why this sentiment just now, just when the elections of Dominica are right around the corner? Well, we have had several processes here. Well, I think it's a strategy to strengthen their position and their policy and they're against the progressive countries that can build democracies in a different way. So I think this is a time where the OAS takes advantage and what is clear is that there is interference of the US against all these countries. So I think it's a strategy that has been supported and orchestrated by the government of the United States. It could not have the force it has. So this is why it's very important. It's important that these organisms keep on fighting and that they can be sure that they have all of the support of the peoples. What we have here is that's why it's so important to be alert, to follow up on what's going on, and overall to support these regional organisms that present plans and programs totally different to the ones we normally do. So, alert is the word. I would like to thank Jorge Luis too. Thank you both for the moment. Let's go to our second pause, and then when we're back, we'll have a next guest. Please stay with us. We'll be right back.
Almagro dijo, una misión de observación de la OEA a Dominica sería esencial para brindar seguridad
apparently
y
this
mejoras al sistema. Nos preguntamos qué se trae entre manos.
Please answer the question that we have already posed on our website. Well, today we've had a lot of participation through internet. I would like to thank everybody, but keep on doing it. We still have it open. After our pause, we're going to have a new guest.
¿Cómo se ha venido consolidando la OEA?
How has the OAS been consolidating itself in favor of the U.S.? Let's mention some examples. The creation of the OAS was based on the Pan-Americanism used by the U.S. to try to have the domination of the economic of the U.S. based on the unity, but where the hegemony of the U.S. are the ones that rule. Then this Pan-American unity changed to the Organization of American States. In 1948, 21 countries gathered in Bogotá made this organization. It was 1 month after the assassination of José Eliezer Gaitán. The climate of instability that this homicide created was good to manipulate the course of this conference, because the U.S. blamed communism for what happened, and they said that they should protect the region. In 1954, after the ousting of Jacobo Arbenz in Guatemala, done by the CIA, the government never said anything in this regards. In regards to Cuba, OAS has always had a hostile action. In Punta del Este, in 1961, the organism kicked out Cuba, saying that there was irrespect to democracy. But they never said anything on the disembarking of U.S. Marines in 1965 on Cuba, and the Plan Condor on the Southern Hemisphere. On June 28 of 2009, there was a coup d'etat against Manuel Zelaya. During the summit of the Group of Rio in 2010, celebrating Cancun, Hugo Chavez spoke about the very weird action of the OAS, and he said that the president should have a fair way of seeing things. However, in 2017, he called on the permanent session to speak about Venezuela. This meeting did not have the approval of Haiti and Bolivia, that were in charge of the presidency and vice presidents. When there was an attempt of coup d'etat in 2010 and their interference in Nicaragua and their active action during the coup d'etat of Bolivia, have reiterated the colonialist spirit of this organization. This is what we're going to be talking about with our next guest. He's a lawyer, investigator. How are you? This is what you just did was very interesting, this summary. And on this summary, we'd like to work on some ideas, because somebody could say that this is pushing it too far, saying that the OAS that is seeing Dominica. Well, there's a very interesting topic, because we should understand what the Secretary General of the OAS does, because the OAS is not a supranational organism. It owes itself to the sovereignty of these countries. However, this man thinks he's a dictator. He's a governor who can put and oust a president whenever he wants. He pretends to do the same thing in Dominica, and he has played a role in favor of the coup d'etats and keeping up fascist governments in Latin America, like Piñera, and also supporting self-proclaimed presidents. Luis Almagro is trying to reactivate the Cold War in Latin America, and he pretends to destroy the CELAC and ALBA. Something important about CELAC. The CELAC declared Latin America as a zone of peace by initiative of the countries of ALBA and Venezuela. And there were no wars during Hugo Chavez, Lula, Kirchner. These governments that have been ousted by coup d'etats, like the case of Dilma Rousseff, Paraguay. So CELAC is an alternative to the OAS without the U.S. And it is an organism that represents the efforts of Simón Bolívar to create a Latin American and Caribbean unity. It's the first organism that gathers all of the countries of Latin America without the presence of the U.S. and Canada, with whom we don't have common interests. And always respecting the political differences of each one of these countries. In CELAC, there were countries such as Álvaro Uribe that has a right-wing position, and he ratifies paramilitarism. Juan Manuel Santos was also there, but CELAC represented a very wide variety. This does not have anything to do with a political tendency. Hugo Chavez always said that there should be a profound respect to the decision of each country. There's something more to say of Almagro. Almagro is saying that in Bolivia they're trying to push
que reviven el fascismo más crudo de la humanidad.
a
Estamos
fascist
hablando de
movement.
actos tan
There are
crueles y
acts that
tan
are so
terribles
cruel and
como
terrible,
los de Mussolini
like the ones
o
of
de Hitler, ¿no?
Mussolini or
Y estamos
Hitler.
hablando
And
de
we're speaking
retomar la
of
Biblia como un instrumento
taking
de
the
sometimiento a
Bible
los pueblos
once
y de un
again
pueblo
as
como
an
Bolivia,
instrument of submission,
donde hay una mayoría de población
where the
indígena.
majority of
El
the people
único
are
presidente
indigenous, and the
indígena
only
de América Latina y el
indigenous
Caribe, óigase bien,
president
único presidente indígena de América Latina y el
of Latin
Caribe,
America and
es
the
depuesto por
Caribbean
un golpe de Estado
has been
donde la OEA
ousted
juega
by
un
a
papel
coup d'etat,
abiertamente
where the OAS
intervencionista.
has had a pivotal role.
como un golpe de Estado a los pueblos originarios?
Sin duda, sin duda. Es más, a uno de los avances más extraordinarios
One of
de
the
América
most
Latina,
important advances in Latin
recobrar
America
de
in
la historia de los
recovering
pueblos de América.
from the
Hay que
history.
recordar que allí se quemó la Huipala, se
Let's not
quemaron
forget
casas.
that
Esto
the
revive
Huipala
escenarios,
was burnt
Rey,
there.
si me permite,
This
de nuestra audiencia,
brings
de
back
cuando los invasores vinieron a América y quemaban las
images
chozas de nuestros
of
pueblos
how
indígenas.
they,
Aquí
when
quemaron las casas,
when
aquí
the
renunciaron
conquistadors came, they
más de
burnt
60
the houses.
gobernantes de Bolivia. O sea, no es un golpe de Estado al presidente.
This is
Esto hay
not
que
just
decirlo.
a coup
El golpe de
against the
Estado
president,
implicó la renuncia del presidente, del
because with him
vicepresidente,
went
del
the vice
presidente, la
president,
presidenta del Senado y
the
del
president of the
presidente de la
Senate,
Cámara de Diputados.
and the president
Todos
of the
los llamados a
chambers,
suceder al Estado
and they
plurinacional.
all
Todos
quit.
los llamados a suceder en el cargo
Everybody
al
who was
presidente Evo
called
Morales fueron
to be the
depuestos
successor
por estas
of President Evo
persecuciones
Morales.
fascistas y racistas.
Everybody
Pero
has
además,
been
la actitud
ousted
de Evo Morales,
in
que
violent
contrasta
ways.
mucho con la de Piñera, un presidente que decide no llamar a fuerzas
And
armadas,
let's
recibir, que
let's
decide
not
no
forget what
plantear su
happened to
escenario de guerra,
Piñera.
sino yo renuncio por
He
la paz
says,
en mi país, vamos a elecciones, busquemos medidas democráticas. Y la OEA respalda todo esto, al
OEA
mismo tiempo que respalda
supports
a un Piñera que es
everything that
el
Piñera
ha roto
does.
récord Guinness
Although he
en
has
lesiones
broken the
oculares,
Guinness
como
World
parte de la
Records
represión en un país
on
del mundo. Una
repression.
cosa de un nivel de barbaridad.
This
Las
is
violaciones en
terrible.
Chile,
All
hay
of
que decirlo.
violations in
Miren,
Chile.
han
It's important
aparecido
to say
mujeres
it.
como la misma,
There have
que
been
apareció
women
colgada,
who
ahorcada
has
en un
been
parque después de
hanged
ser
in a
violada,
park
torturada.
after being
Una
tortured
periodista
and
que
violated.
registró las manifestaciones, aparece
A
violada,
journalist
torturada.
also
Un
has
récord de
been
violaciones a
has
mujeres.
been
O sea, ¿qué
tortured
está
and
pasando en
raped.
América Latina?
What is
Sí,
going
también,
on?
correcto. ¿Qué está pasando en América Latina y en el mundo que no podemos
That
entender?
nobody
Que
can
no hay una
understand.
reacción
There's
contundente.
no
Hay que saludar el
reaction.
comunicado de
¿Es responsable
ALBA-TCP.
entonces la OEA por omisión en este caso?
No solo por omisión, por intromisión. O sea, la actitud de la OEA,
So
hay
the
que
OAS
decirlo, tú lo decías en tu
has a
programa, hay que
total
recordarlo.
intromission.
A la OEA hasta ahora no ha presentado
Let's not
un
forget
informe
that up
final
until
de
now
las
there is no
elecciones bolivianas
final
con las
report
que-
on the
con un informe
Bolivian
preliminar,
on the
supuestamente
Bolivian
preliminar,
electoral
adelantado.
process.
adelantado además, y después que ya Evo Morales
However,
había anunciado que salía
the
del cargo
president
para
has
llamar a nuevas elecciones,
has
después
to
de
step
eso,
down
la OEA
already.
publica un informe para azuzar el fascismo y el racismo en Bolivia. Es una cosa realmente cruenta.
This is a
la
statement
que
that
Luis
is very
Almagro,
hard.
lamentablemente, yo estoy seguro que así como en Paraguay lo rechazaron, los pueblos de América Latina
I'm
van a
sure that the
rechazar a Luis
people of
Almagro
Latin
donde vaya.
America
Este personaje
will
va a
also
pasar
do
en
Me llama
medio
la
more
atención algo.
more of these things.
Lo hace, citando palabras suyas, profesor Luis Almagro, por conveniencia o no.
Okay,
de los
Luis Almagro
mandatarios,
does
o
this
sea,
for what?
porque le
What
convienen
is
o
his
no a él
purpose?
los mandatarios de las diferentes naciones de América Latina, o hay alguien
Or
que
is there something or
represente a
someone?
Salvador en esta
Sin duda todo lo que se ha dicho en el programa sobre el papel colonialista.
Well,
de la
everything that
OEA
I've
es
said about the
inequívoco.
colonialist
La OEA es
role
el
of the
Ministerio de los Colonias de
OAS.
Estados Unidos en América Latina.
It's
Es
really the
responsable
Ministry of the
de
colonies
promover
in the
relaciones
and the Latin
coloniales
America.
con pueblos de América Latina
What they're
durante
trying to
mucho
do
tiempo.
is
O sea, que en este
promote
caso,
colonialism.
bien, tenemos que utilizar The Voice of America. Luis Almagro
Well,
es la voz
and
de Estados
what
Unidos.
Luis
No
Almagro
solo
said
Estados Unidos, además de la complicidad de
that he
presidentes
leads
fascistas en América Latina. Hay que recordar,
Latin America.
el presidente
Let's not
Piñera
forget
dijo
that
públicamente
Piñera
que estamos en
said
guerra,
publicly,
frente a unas
"We are at
manifestaciones
war,"
de pueblo en la
confronted
calle
with
reclamando por aumentos
with
en pasajes,
some
¿no? Y dijo, "Estamos en
people that
guerra".
were
Cuando él dijo,
protesting
"Estamos en
against the
guerra", no lo está
increase
diciendo Piñera, lo está
in
diciendo
the
el Grupo de Lima.
transportation.
Lo está diciendo países que están entrando en crisis.
But
que
it's not
decretaron
Piñera
estados de
himself
sitio.
who is
Caso
saying,
Colombia,
no, it's the
caso
group of
Chile,
Lima.
caso Ecuador,
Chile, Peru,
renuevan la declaración de estados de sitios en América Latina.
and now they
Entonces, ¿están
do
en guerra con quién? ¿Con los
confirm
Están en guerra
these
con los pueblos de
movements.
América Latina y
And what
el
they're
Caribe.
doing
El
is that they're at
asesinato de líderes
war
sociales
with
en
the people in
Colombia,
Bolivia.
un asesinato masivo, permanente, una cosa que realmente llega a un nivel de escalada sorprendente para la humanidad. Yo estoy seguro,
I am
confío
sure,
que la
and I
humanidad
trust that
en algún
humanity
momento pondrá los
at
ojos de
some
verdad sobre
point
América Latina,
will
más
set
allá
their
del
eyes on Latin
silenciamiento que
America
pretenden muchas
beyond the
transnacionales de
silence that
comunicación
that
y en
we've
las que
seen up
Telesur
until now.
rompe realmente los esquemas
There's been
y pone
silence
la verdad
except
sobre
for
la mesa, la
Telesur,
verdad del
and
pueblo de América
this is
Latina
why
y
we
la
see
verdad
what's going
de
on in the
de
world
la humanidad,
through
de la paz, de la justicia
through
que requiere el
Telesur.
pueblo de la humanidad hoy.
Hablando del Caribe, profesor.
Well, speaking
¿por
of the
qué con
Caribbean,
Dominica ahora?
Dominica es una pieza más
why
en el
Dominica
tablero de
now?
países de América
Well, it's
Latina y el
because
Caribe.
it's another
Vamos,
piece
la OEA
in
va a un
the
proceso de
letter in the pizza. Let's not forget what happened in Mexico and Argentina. some progressive, independent governments had backed their left-wing governments. Now we have risks in Colombia, in Chile, in Ecuador, and what Almagro is trying to do is to move his chips. And part of establishing the U.S. colonialism, and that now is even racist than colonialist, Dominica could even be a very insignificant island. But of course, it's also a vote in the United Nations and the OAS. It's also part of the CARICOM. CARICOM has been in block against what has come against Venezuela and Cuba. So what they're trying to do is to break the region. I think CARICOM is clear. The people of CARICOM have enough maturity, even before the OAS had the statement rejecting the position of Almagro. Because let's not forget that Almagro said that there would not be fair elections in Dominica. It's undoubted that Almagro is answering to the interest of the U.S. and that he will go down in history as the responsible of the fascist movement. While you were reflecting on the role of the CARICOM and how they're trying to break this political bloc, I recalled the surprise visit the back then President Barack Obama to the representatives of CARICOM before to the Summit of the Americas. And several analysts at the time said that President Obama was doing like a lobby against Petrocaribe. So what he was trying to do is to recruit the countries of CARICOM to give their backs on CARICOM, and this way bombard and boycott this initiative that is part of the ALBA-TCP. Let's not forget the role of Petrocaribe that provided oil to these Latin American countries for the independence. In the time of Kirchner, they tried to liberate the country from their debt. And they don't like the idea of Petrocaribe because Petrocaribe will free them from the economic dependency. And it's a tool that will allow the people of Latin America to have fuel at cheaper prices. So the need of the IMF is also the same, not allowing them to bring forward Petrocaribe because they go against the interventionist purposes of the U.S. It's a tool of liberation. In this sense, the United States is also trying to do it through the OAS. Without a doubt, since they're bombarding ALBA, and they try to bring back instruments like the TR, it's trying to bring back people from Latin America to do what they have to do for others. Let's not forget these situations of what was the government of Lula, the government of Kirchner, the government of Peru. Those were the best times in America. And now they're being bombarded systematically by the U.S. And let's not forget that the Group of Lima, that is part of this interference group, are fundamental businessmen. Because the Group of Lima has had the major support of the countries of Latin America. And what they're calling out is on the IMF.
con la gente en la calle protestando, y hay que decirlo, ¿por qué están protestando?
It's
Por lo que
important to
protestó
say
Venezuela en 1989, que generó el Caracazo,
that in
y aquella masacre
1989
que cometieron los gobiernos
in Venezuela, there was
adecos
a
en
big
Venezuela,
protest,
¿no?
and
de
the
la
governments
mal llamada
of
democracia venezolana, estos
democracy,
40 años del punto fijismo, y que cometieron una tremenda masacre
and
en
that they,
89,
and in
cuando el pueblo
1989,
reaccionó frente
they
a
did
las
they
políticas
did
que
against the
tenía
people, and
el
there was a
endeudamiento
huge
con el FMI y
genocide,
con el Banco Mundial.
and that
Hay que
was when
recordar,
there was this
el FMI y el
confrontation
Banco
with the
Mundial tienen
IMF and the
incluso
World Bank.
oficinas donde construyen leyes para América Latina y el Caribe. Le dan lineamientos permanentemente a
There
América
were
Latina y el
permanent
Caribe de
guidelines,
reducir gastos que no generen
and they always asked
es decir, reducir gastos en
all
salud,
of the members to
reducir gastos en
reduce
educación, reducir
costs
gastos
in
en
health,
viviendas sociales.
in
Reducir la
FMI,
inversión
in
pública.
es
public,
correcto,
in
FMI y
public
Banco Mundial, esa es la principal recomendación que han dado
investments.
sistemáticamente. Por
So
eso los
yes,
pueblos
this is the
reaccionan, porque cuando
IMF
entra el
also
FMI,
says
entra el
that to
liberalismo,
stop
lo que viene
all
es
type of
aumento
investment.
de precios,
And what we have is
viene
an increase
disminución
of
de servicios
prices,
públicos,
the
de mejora
diminishing
la
of public
salud, quieren
services,
privatizar
diminish
la
the
educación,
education,
como hicieron aquí en 1998 con el gobierno de Caldera, que con el PLES. O sea, hay un proceso
sports.
mediante el
So
cual
there is a
el
process
FMI y
by
el
why
Banco Mundial
the IMF
van imponiendo medidas
imposes
permanentes de reducción
permanent
de beneficios
measures
sociales
of
que
reduction
aumentan las brechas de desigualdad
of
social en estos
prices
países.
that
Por eso Chile es el
increase
país con mayor
the
desigualdad. Hay
just
que decirlo,
increase
o sea, ¿cuál es la situación de Chile?
the situation.
Chile
Let's
en el
not
mundo
forget Chile.
aparece como
Chile
uno de los primeros
appears as
países
one of the
donde la
first countries
desigualdad
where the
entre ricos y
inequality
pobres es mayor.
between rich
Y
and
es un
poor are
producto
among the
precisamente,
biggest.
digamos, Chile es la referencia
And
que el
Chile is
FMI
the reference
y
of
que
the
en el
IMF.
mundo presenta
And then
como
the
economía
world they
en América
present
Latina y el Caribe. ¿Y a
as
costa de qué? De una desigualdad profunda,
somebody
de la
great.
miseria de los pueblos, de una educación toda privada, donde no hay acceso a educación gratuita de ningún
And let's not
tipo,
forget that
¿verdad?
there is
Donde
no
la
public
salud
access
está
of health
privatizada prácticamente
or
toda,
anything,
donde el pueblo no tiene acceso a
where
los
the
servicios
people
básicos, donde los
doesn't have
derechos humanos
a
que
right
valen
to human
son
rights,
únicamente los derechos de los empresarios, los derechos de las libertades,
and where
pero los derechos
the
sociales,
liberties at
los
work
derechos
are the
de
ones of the
de los
businessmen.
pueblos son indiscutiblemente violentados de manera sistemática.
Pero esos son los gobiernos que aplaude el secretario general de la OEA, profesor. Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you
por
very
su
much,
tiempo
Professor, for
para
your time.
reflexionar junto a nosotros acá en la jugada crítica.
Muchísimas gracias a ti, Rey, de verdad, felicidades a este programa, felicitaciones. a
In
este programa
fact,
de
thank
Jugada
you.
Crítica
I
y a
want to
este extraordinario
congratulate
análisis
this
que se dio a
extraordinary analysis that you presented every
Gracias,
day.
profesor. Vamos a las conclusiones.